Wishing you a pleasant listening experience. At 11 a.m., I placed an order for takeout. As I was about to open the door to receive it, my phone suddenly rang. Don't open the door. Don't open the door. Don't open the door. 3 messages with identical content, sent from the same strange phone number. I stared at the messages on my phone, cold sweat pouring down my back. What the hell is going on? Is this a joke? The person outside kept knocking on the door, the knocking getting more and more urgent. I wasn't sure what the message meant, but my intuition told me not to open the door. Just leave it outside. A calm male voice came from outside, so remember to get it. I walked over, looked out through the peephole and gasped. The motion sensor lights in the hallway should have turned on when someone was there. Old apartments are really annoying, all the equipment is so old. At this moment the phone vibrated again. I opened it to see. Don't open the door, he hasn't left yet. There was a knife behind his back. I was immediately covered in cold sweat, my heart pounding, my hand holding the phone trembling. He hadn't left, which meant the darkness from earlier, his eyes were looking at me. I felt my head go numb. I hurriedly texted back while trembling, "Who are you?" The other party did not reply anymore. I felt like I had just lost my life buoy. I shakily opened the Food Knife app to see. The chat box with the store was full of messages. Sorry, I see you haven't received the item. The grilled food is cold. Please remember to reheat it. I didn't dare to reply in the group, covered my mouth with my hand, and didn't dare to make a sound. Only when I saw the notification did I see it. The surrender was successful. I lay on the bed. All night long every little sound made my nerves tense like a guitar string. I kept looking at my phone, sent a message, "Are you 305? I'm in room 304. 305 is the opposite room. Only the neighbors across the room can see the thief." But the other party still didn't reply. He must be asleep. I didn't sleep all night. I wanted to call the police, but I had no concrete evidence, so I wondered if they would believe me. I picked up the glass of water by the bed and took a sip, and soon fell asleep in a daze. In my dreams, I always had the feeling that someone was walking around in my room. But no matter what, I couldn't open my eyes. I could only curl up tightly in my legs to find some sense of security. It was summer and morning came very early. The morning light gave me some courage. I looked out through the peephole. Room 305's door was still closed. I have never met this neighbor before. I have only been here less than a month and already this terrible thing has happened. Looks like I have to move soon. I opened WeChat, posted a status, looking for a house to rent in the Ring Road 2 area. Anyone have any recommendations? I scrolled down to see the previous post. It was a photo of me being honored as an outstanding employee. Rent was no longer a problem. I had just received a bonus of 50 million. Thinking about my efforts, I felt somewhat relieved. At this moment, the phone rang. It's last night's number again. Sorry, I fell asleep last night. Please don't tell anyone about this. I'm afraid of unnecessary trouble. I felt warm and immediately texted back, reassured. There was another knock on the door. I was startled. Looking through the peephole, there was a young girl outside, looking like a college student, with a pretty and lovely face. Who are you? The girl raised her phone, 300 years old, the person who texted her last night. I lowered my guard by half and opened the door. She felt a little relieved when I opened the door, and looked around nervously. She came closer, covered her mouth with the back of her hand, and spoke softly as if she was afraid someone would hear. Sister, I was going out last night. But as soon as I opened the door a little, I saw the delivery man behind me peeling vegetables and fruits. I was so scared that I quickly texted her to warn her. I was a bit suspicious, but we don't know each other. How do you know my phone number? The girl looked at me for a moment, then replied, "Oh, because I'm also in the rental group. Your avatar in room 304 has that number." Just then, the group administrator posted a notice. Those whose lease is about to expire, please leave the group. The administrator is the uncle and aunt from the building management board. She keeps posting things like this. To be honest, I find it a bit annoying. It's like if you don't rent anymore, you have to disappear. The girl had big round eyes that were glistening with tears. She patted her back and said, "Don't be afraid. I'll remember to lock the door carefully. Don't be careless." After saying that, she turned back to her room. When she opened the door, I caught a glimpse of her living room. The decor was simple and clean, and I could tell she was a neat person. I was about to close the door when I accidentally caught a glimpse of the bag of groceries next to the door. The memories of last night rushed back like waves of teeth, making my head numb. I quickly closed the door, locked it carefully, and checked each window carefully. I had to move as soon as possible. Today is Saturday, I don't go out. While it's still dark, I pull the curtains. The living room door is blocked by a chair. I even blocked the bedroom door with a chair. I was afraid of the night. Lying on the bare bed, I couldn't sleep. My status has been unanswered for 3 days. Is that girl trustworthy? I didn't see any knife behind the back of the person who cut the food anyway. Besides, I've never given anyone a bad review. But why did she take the initiative to tell me that? My head was pounding. I had been in a daze all day, feeling like I was about to collapse. I don't know how long I had slept, but I was awakened by a noise outside the door. I turned on my phone. The light from the screen made me squint. I looked at the clock, 3 a.m. I initially intended to ignore it and go back to sleep, but the noise seemed to come from right in front of my house. I immediately sobered up and heard a conversation outside. A drunken male voice. "You're drunk. You dare to sneak up on me and have an affair with another guy. Do you want to die?" A trembling female voice softly begged, "Please don't hit me anymore. Save me. Save me." Then there was a slap and a woman's scream. There were only 2 apartments on the same floor. There were no other neighbors. Could it be that girl? The remaining sleepiness disappeared in an instant. The noise outside was quite loud, occasionally knocking on my door, making me shiver. I got up from my chair and opened the bedroom door. The sound outside seemed to be about to burst into my room. I couldn't stand it anymore, and walked briskly to the main door. Just then the noise suddenly stopped. I looked out through the peephole. The hallway sensor light was still on. Room 305's door was still closed. No drunk men, no beaten women. If this continues, I'm going to go crazy. I poured myself a glass of water and soon fell asleep again. The next morning I couldn't take it anymore and decided to call the police. When the 2 policemen arrived, I felt like I was saved. I told them everything that had happened in the past 2 nights. To prove my point, I knocked on the door of room 305. But no matter how I knocked, the door remained closed. Facing the police's suspicion, I took out my phone. Seriously, I'm not lying. But when the police checked, they showed me there were no messages. I couldn't believe it, quickly turned the phone over. There were really no messages left. Where were the messages? Why did they disappear? Even the girl's phone number that I had saved was gone. My salary broke out in a cold sweat. The police said they had checked the camera at the entrance on the 1st floor. And there was no drunk man dragging a woman in. Because this area was so old, only the ground floor of the entire building had cameras. I was completely devastated, and my head was aching more and more. I called the landlady and asked her to contact the owner of room 305 or the nearest tenant. The landlady agreed and said she would let me know later. She also asked another question. "Little maid, have you reported the loss of your key to the management yet?" I shook my head. "You didn't have time to report it before you encountered this." Then, with the cooperation of the police, the landlord of room 305 also replied. "Room 305 in the park area? Oh, the tenant of that room had already moved out last month." Moved out? The information was like a slap in the face to my ears. I gripped the phone tightly, as if trying to cling to the last clue. So, was the tenant male or female? Do you remember? Let me see, it was a young man, not too tall, with a bright face, very polite. I don't believe it. I'm sure there's someone in there. The police are out of options. After some negotiation, the landlord reluctantly let the management open the door so I could go into room 305 and take a look. Inside, there were indeed no signs of anyone living there. The police told me not to stress too much and to take a break this weekend. Is it because the stress of work is driving me crazy? Is everything an illusion? No way. Tomorrow is Monday. I decided to take a day off to move house. Because finally someone responded to my post in my circle of friends. Inside, I packed my things at night. Even with air conditioning in the summer, my mouth is still dry. I took the cup and drank all the water in one gulp. The exhaustion of the past 2 days was too much for my body to handle. Exhaustion overwhelmed me. I collapsed on the bed and quickly fell asleep. Dripping, drizzling like something was dripping. I tried to open my eyes but found I couldn't move. The light had been turned on at some point. I was still lying on the bed, but my hands and feet were tied. Fear immediately gripped me. The phone was right next to my head. I tried to roll over to call for help. Suddenly a hand grabbed my phone. I looked at the person next to me, feeling like a bucket of cold water had been poured down my heart. She had big, sparkling eyes and an innocent, adorable appearance. I immediately recognized who she was. She was holding an iron bar and kept hitting my headboard. The sound of metal clashing echoed in the room, like each strike hitting my tense nerves. Each sound caused my psychological defenses to almost collapse. I regretted it so much. Why did I rent a cheap place with such bad security? I regretted asking for leave. If I didn't leave, my boss would definitely find a way to contact me when I was absent without reason. Sister, I tried to stay calm. Me. What do you want to do? There is no grudge between us? She laughed as if she had just heard the most ridiculous story in the world, her whole body shaking with laughter. Sister, how does it feel to be considered crazy? I tried to search my memory. I was sure I had never offended anyone. Why did she do that to me? Was it a competitor? Was she unhappy that I was always at the top of the sales every quarter? What did I do to offend you? At least let me die clearly. She took my phone, held it in front of me, blurred the friends section and said sarcastically, "Look at yourself, this time on a business trip to Hainan, this time traveling abroad, this time even won a sales award. What are you bragging about?" I couldn't find any words to refute. Just because of that? She laughed contemptuously. People like her are really hateful. I kept thinking to myself, crazy. Do you know, people like me, every day running deliveries without rest, if I'm a little late, I'll get complaints from customers, scolded by the store and punished by the platform. Why do you get to live so happily? Why? But that can't be a reason for me to corner you. She stuffed a towel into my mouth. Immediately after, the iron bar hit me hard. The pain in my pin increased. I wanted to scream, but all I could make was a grunt. I glanced up at the wall clock. 4 a.m. Maybe the landlord who couldn't contact me would come looking for me. Maybe I still had a chance. She seemed to read my mind. She waved the iron bar in front of my head. I begged her to say something. She warned me not to even dream of calling for help. Otherwise, she would kill me immediately. I nodded in agreement. She removed the cloth from my mouth. I told her urgently, "Let me go. I can pretend this never happened. I'll give you the money. All the money I have." She immediately grabbed my neck. A feeling of suffocation and fear enveloped me. It felt like I would die any moment. She let go of my hand. I coughed incessantly. Then she forced me to drink a glass of water. As the coma gradually subsided, I suddenly realized, maybe there was a problem with the water in the kettle from the beginning. Too much water, too much water. It seemed like the landlady's voice was calling me. The sound echoed through the rain and lake as if I was lying in a dry well trying to hear the world outside. It even carried an echo. I woke up in a daze and saw her worried face. "Xiaoyu, are you okay?" Her voice finally became clearer when I saw her face clearly. I jumped up, startling her. I was about to get out of bed, but the sharp pain in my thigh made me realize that what happened this morning was not a dream. I looked at my wrists and ankles, clearly bruised from struggling. "Are you really okay, little girl?" I stood up and looked at her, feeling like I had just grabbed a lifeline. "How did you get in?" She turned to the door and said, "The door was open, I thought you were gone. Who would have thought when I went in I would see you still lying there?" I held my pounding head. I picked up the phone, ready to call the police. The landlady asked, "What's wrong?" I decided that from now on, except for the police, I wouldn't trust anyone. The police arrived immediately, the same two people as before. I told them everything that had happened last night. But the results of the investigation left me speechless. The water in the water dispenser was fine. No strange fingerprints were found at the scene. They asked me to describe the girl's appearance so they could draw her portrait. They said they would have the results soon. That day I also moved to a new apartment, a place with better security. As soon as I got home, I planned to install a camera in the living room. After thinking it over, I finally decided to install a hidden camera. The police quickly got back to me. They said the portrait drawn from my description did not match anyone in the database, which meant that person most likely didn't exist. My heart felt like it had been hit with a block of ice. "No one will believe you because you are a madman." The voice echoed in my memory. "That person does not exist." Was I really crazy? The police also arranged for me to see a psychiatrist. The results were not technically accurate, but in plain English, I had moderate depression with persecutory delusions. Persecutory delusions? What about the bruises on my arms and legs? I quickly moved to the new house. When I sat down on the sofa exhausted, a message appeared on my phone from my old landlady. Xiaoyu, you haven't left the key yet. How can I check the house? I moved in such a hurry that I didn't have time to hand over the key. I looked at my watch, 8 p.m. I really didn't have the energy to go back. I texted, come to your house tomorrow, I'm too tired. She texted back, no, tomorrow someone will come to see the house. It's inconvenient not to have the key. Moreover, you still have the management's key without reporting it. I sighed. I really didn't want to cause trouble for anyone. But just thinking about going back to that room gave me goosebumps. I said to myself after handing over the keys, from now on I will never go back to that place again. At 8:30 p.m., I called a taxi to the apartment complex. The crowded streets made me feel somewhat secure. But as soon as I entered the apartment building, I felt like someone was silently watching my every move. Sometimes my whole body got goosebumps. I walked to the door of room 304, but didn't see the landlady anywhere. An uneasy feeling suddenly rose from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. I instinctively took out my phone and prepared to call the police. Suddenly, the door to room 304 opened. A pair of hands reached out from the darkness, grabbed my hands and dragged me inside. The phone fell down the stairs, my heart skipped a beat. I held onto the door frame and kept calling for help. Help me! Help me! Suddenly my body lost its balance and I fell backwards. Before I could regain my balance, someone rushed from behind and grabbed my neck from behind. The force was very strong, clearly male. I saw the person lying motionless on the ground was the landlady. Immediately after, a sharp pain hit the back of my head, making me dizzy and losing all strength to resist. When I woke up, I found myself tied to a chair. I told you I'm not crazy. It was the same girl, holding the landlady's phone and smilingly saying to me, "Hey, we meet again." The landlady lay still on the ground. I looked at her and asked, "Did you kill her?" Her face was about to turn ferocious. There was no way. Who told her to keep ruining my business over and over again? I tried to stay awake, so you used her phone to text me here, right? She nodded and answered yes. The truth was finally gradually revealed. I guess you're a man, right? She was momentarily stunned. The pulling force just now couldn't have come from a weak little girl. Unless she was a man. She clapped her hands in praise, you are very smart. Then she took off her wig, revealing a round head, small in stature but clearly male with a handsome face. He was the tenant 300 years ago. Blame the police database for not being able to match the information, even the gender was wrong. Why did you do that to me? I don't believe it just because of that stupid reason. He stopped hiding and said it straight, I was targeting her. He pointed at the landlady lying on the floor. She was just unlucky moving into her room. I really don't understand, I don't understand your logic at all. He laughed, holding the knife and swiping it back and forth across my face. The cold feeling of the blade gave me goosebumps even though it was the middle of summer. I didn't need to understand, I just wanted to teach that arrogant landlady a lesson. But then I changed my mind, if you want to live, transfer me 1 million. I nodded without hesitation. Compared to life, 1 million is nothing. But my phone is not here. He warned me it's best not to touch the game. I don't dare, my hands and feet are tied like this, how can I touch the game? He turned back to the phone. As soon as he opened it, he saw the call screen. He immediately took the knife and stabbed me straight in the thigh. The pain made my whole body tremble. Call the police? No way. No, there was no call. I screamed in pain. I had just pressed the call button when he pulled me in. I hadn't pressed the call button yet. I wasn't even sure if I had called yet. I just hoped the police would find the trace and not abandon me. Finally, under my guidance, he transferred the money successfully. Seeing the amount, he smiled with satisfaction. I tried to probe, could he let me go? Unexpectedly, his face suddenly became vicious. You are still too naive, still so gullible. I still have money, I shouted, trying to hold on to my last hope. His knife hand stopped in midair. 1 million was enough. She was worthless now. The blade was flying straight towards my head. Just then the door opened, followed by a shout, "Don't move. Police." The knife fell, he was immediately subdued. Saved. My heart was pounding, tears streaming down uncontrollably. I was untied by the police. Seeing the evil enemy handcuffed, still trying to fight the rice field, his face full of ferocity. A policeman patted my shoulder to reassure me, "Don't worry, leave the rest to us." The ambulance was called. I looked over their shoulders at the landlady. The police said it's okay, she's not dead. Just fainted. Only then did I truly breathe a sigh of relief. I asked for a long leave of absence, although the boss seemed unhappy, but there was no other way. 3 days passed, my left leg was still in pain, but I still endured the pain and went to the police station. The truth gradually came to light. The man's name was Luyu, he had just graduated from university, and was working as a food delivery man. At first he wanted to rent room 305, which was the room I was staying in. Although it was a one-bedroom room, it had a window facing the sun and the location was very good. However, the monthly rent of $3,000 made him hesitate. He begged the landlord to see if he could lower the price. The landlord didn't even look at him, his tone full of contempt. "If you have money then rent, if you don't have money then go look somewhere else. I still keep the price the same as before." I turned to look at the landlady sitting next to me. She slapped her thigh. "Oh, I remember now. There really is such a person." At that time he begged for a long time. But I was telling the truth. Young people these days, why do they hold grudges so much? The policeman shook his head, but beyond that, she didn't listen to anything else he said, and even pushed him out the door. Immediately after, she turned around, smiling brightly to welcome another tenant. He was angry with her because of that and wanted to take the opportunity to take revenge. That was the motive for the crime. My leg hurt again, but what does this have to do with me? The police looked at me and said, "Because you are the tenant of room 304. Luyu initially intended to leave, but the last words of the landlady touched his pride. He decided to teach her a lesson. It would be best to make sure that no one would dare rent that room again. He raised his head and saw the words "For Rent" posted on door 305. He clenched his fists, immediately deciding to rent this room, looking for a chance to get revenge. But a month later, he still couldn't find an opportunity. There wasn't much left in his account, so he had to check out. Luyu moved to a cheaper place, but he secretly kept a copy of the key. He thought that if there was no place to stay and room 304 was not rented yet, he could secretly return to stay. At this time, in the chat group of the residents of the police district, the group leader sent a notice to members who had checked out, "Please leave the group." Luyu was already sensitive. Seeing such a notice made him even angrier, thinking that he was being targeted. At that moment I entered the group. Because I'm a salesperson, I set my profile picture with my phone number. The display name is room 305. Luyu conveniently clicked to see. My personal page was set to allow strangers to see my posts. A few days later, Luyu received a delivery order. The address was Police District 6-3-305. The first time he contacted me, I had not yet returned home. He saw the key on the door, so he took it. For the next few days he followed me, looking through the window and checking my profile. He quickly understood that I lived alone, had no friends, and ordered food on the weekends. And then a daring plan gradually formed in his mind. He asked the landlord if room 304 was rented yet, saying that if not, he would like to rent it again in a few days. The landlord, who had a good impression of him, replied that it was temporarily unavailable. If he still wants to rent, I will reduce the deposit for him next time. Luyu pretended to thank him and said he would come back to rent in half a month. If someone else wants to rent, please let me know in advance. The landlord happily agreed. He took advantage of the situation to make sure that 305 was currently unoccupied. No wonder, when I looked into room 305 and saw the simple furniture, it turned out that he was not there. No wonder when I contacted the landlord it was confirmed that there was no one there, it was all just a cover-up he had planned. He took advantage of the time I went to work on Friday, used the key to open the door, and secretly poured sleeping pills into the water dispenser. When I ordered food, the real delivery person had already left. He was the one who appeared, blindfolded, and texted me using a phone number, pretending to be a good girl, reminding the neighbor who lived alone to be careful. He deliberately made me feel scared, made me feel threatened by an invisible danger. He dressed as a woman and let me see him enter room 305, making me believe he was my neighbor. That night I drank water and fell asleep. The feeling of someone walking around the room was not an illusion but a reality. Lu Yu used the key to enter the house and gently observed everything. He simply wanted to feel the life in the room that he could not afford to rent. By the way, he deleted all the messages and calls he sent. Since he was wearing gloves and thick condoms, he didn't leave any traces in the house. No wonder I couldn't find any messages. Thinking about a stranger quietly walking into my room while I was sleeping, my whole body couldn't help but shiver. He had a delicate face, often praised as looking like a girl. Just by lightly putting on makeup, he could look very similar to a girl, and his voice was also just as natural. The second time he placed a tape recorder in front of my door, and the sound of a man and a woman arguing was coming from there. Combined with the loud knocking on the door, it was all just to create a sense of insecurity so that I would quickly move out. The purpose was to make sure that no one would dare rent a house from that landlady again. But I kept posting about my achievements and travels on social media, which annoyed a mentally unstable person like him. He decided to break in and scare me. Unexpectedly, the owner texted me saying he was coming over, which made him run away, conveniently changing the water bottle. The third time when I moved, the landlord came to inspect the room. Lu Yu initially intended to scare me, but then he got greedy and wanted to blackmail me. He waited for the right moment, pushed the landlady into the room, beat her up and then borrowed her phone to text me. He hid in the dark like a ghost, saw me calling through the cat's eye, and rushed out to pull me in. Everything was clear now. The landlady banged the table in anger. Oh my God. Look at that elegant scholarly face. Who would have thought he was such a pervert? My head still hurts. Must be punished severely. The police smiled. Don't worry, the law will not forgive any criminals. But sister, you have to be careful with what you say in the future. Society is very complicated now, you never know what kind of people you will meet. The landlady nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes. Girl, you really have suffered too much. The police turned to me. You too. You should always be careful to protect your personal information. In today's bad society, criminals only need a small opportunity to strike. I stood up, bowed my head and thanked the police. Quit my job. Before leaving, the boss still tried to draw a picture for me, saying that if I was the top salesperson, the position of sales director would definitely belong to me. I turned around and said to him, the boss said this 3 times. He groaned and immediately patted his chest to assure her. Rest assured, this time it would definitely be different. Otherwise, she could just become the director now. Before I could refuse, my phone rang. I opened it and saw a message. Just 3 words, sorry. From a familiar yet unfamiliar phone number. I immediately deleted the message. Also uninstalled the food ordering app. I vaguely remember, once it was raining heavily, someone delivered food to me. I gave him a bottle of hot milk. He looked at me with grateful eyes. I later wrote a long review thanking him. But at that time I didn't know. The depth of the ocean can be measured, but the human heart is immeasurable. That's all for now. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more great stories. Goodbye and see you again.